Can Penn State play in their first college football playoff? That is a question we will dissect in today's episode of Locked On Nittany Lions.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We may be focused on the start of the college football season, but the NFL season is about to begin and nobody covers it like the Locked On Podcast Network. August 30th through September 8th, the Locked On NFL Podcast is previewing every team and every division with the help of Odyssey's lineup of awesome NFL experts. Follow the ultimate season preview 2021 feed on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast to tune in beginning August 30th. Hi everybody, welcome into a brand new episode of Locked On Nittany Lions. I am your host, Kevin McGuire, and of course I'm the editor of NittanyLionsWire.com, a part of the USA Today Sports Media Group, also a contributor to AthlonSports.com, and things are busy. I'm going to be heading away on vacation at the end of this week. I'm going to miss the beginning of next week, but just putting that out there, we are all in on the start of a new Penn State football season. I cannot wait to get started, and the next couple of weeks are going to be busy for me personally, behind the scenes. We'll see what that does with the production schedule for the podcast, but we know that Penn State football is returning next week. We're going to get some Big Ten football at the end of this week with a Big Ten opener between Nebraska and Illinois coming up here in week 0. We'll talk a little bit about that later on this week, but of course, next week is when this fun finally officially begins for Penn State with an opener on the road against the Wisconsin Badgers. You do not want to miss a single episode of Locked On Nittany Lions from here throughout the course of this upcoming regular season. My first full regular season talking about Penn State in this podcast format with you guys from start to finish, and I am very excited, and hopefully you are as well. I know things have been kind of bumpy during the course of this offseason with terms of just getting in a rhythm, staying on schedule, but I swear, once we get back from this vacation, it is all in, and I am ready to go. I hope you are too. So make sure you never miss a single episode. I already mentioned the Odyssey app for the ultimate team preview for the NFL content that's coming up, but make sure you check out Locked On Nittany Lions on the Odyssey app. Also check out Locked On Big Ten and all the other great shows across the Locked On Podcast Network. It's a great place to get your podcasts. You can get your sports radio, your news radio, your music stations. You can take it all with you on the go, right on your phone with the Odyssey app, no matter if you're in the car, on a train, on a bus, at the gym, or just listening to something at work or at home. The Odyssey app will have you covered there, so make sure you check out the Locked On Nittany Lions podcast there. But of course, we are available on every podcasting platform, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so make sure you leave us a follow, leave us a rating, leave us a review, all that good stuff, because that is ultimately the best way to help show your support for this podcast and help us grow across those various podcasting apps, and it's going to be a lot of fun, so we want to make sure that we get as many people involved as possible. One other way we like to get you involved is by reaching out to you on our Twitter account and our Facebook page. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at Locked On Nittany, and of course, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/LockedOnNittany. Send us your questions, send us your comments. We'll get them included into the show. We do like to do Twitter Tuesdays, so if you have any questions, feel free to submit them now so that they can be included in tomorrow's podcast as well. So we have a lot of fun conversations to have with you over the course of the next couple months as Penn State gets started with the season. But now, of course, we are looking forward to whether or not this is going to be a playoff year for Penn State. And I don't think there's a lot of people that are expecting that this is going to be a playoff season for Penn State. But if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I'm optimistic about where this program is situated going into the 2021 season. Do they have to earn it? Absolutely. It's going to be a challenging year. It's a very challenging schedule, and Penn State's going to have to hope that they are in sync right off the bat, because they're not going to get any layups early on this year. Obviously, opening up on the road against Wisconsin is a very difficult challenge, and certainly it's a good litmus test, I think, for Penn State, also for Wisconsin, opening up the year against a good quality opponent that is looking to prove something this season after having a couple setbacks last year. I think Wisconsin and Penn State are both in pretty good situations going into the upcoming season. That's why I'm looking forward to that week 1 matchup. Of course, Penn State's also going to play Auburn at home in week 3. Big nationally televised, a whiteout crowd atmosphere. It's going to be really fun to see. And of course, there's the road game against Ohio State, which is always difficult no matter where you play the Buckeyes. Penn State will get a revenge opportunity at home against Indiana, who I still think is going to be a pretty good team this year. Michigan is always a good contest. I know there have been a couple blowouts in recent years, but I do think that a Penn State-Michigan matchup is a little bit of a swing game opportunity for both schools. So there's no easy matchup there for Penn State or Michigan. And then, of course, Penn State also has to go on the road against Iowa. And they also take on a Maryland team that beat them up pretty good early on last year. So there are some revenge situations. There are some difficult road trips. And what you want to know is, what is it going to take for Penn State to get through and navigate through this season and put together a resume that suggests that they should be included in the college football playoff. The reason I'm bringing this conversation up today to get our week started is because USA Today's Eric Smith put together his list of the 8 teams that he feel are capable of making their first trip to the college football playoff in the 2021 season. And among them, of course, was Penn State. And this is a pretty familiar routine now that as we go into new seasons, we take a look at the college football playoff history and take a look at some of the teams that are out there going into the upcoming season and seeing whether or not there are teams that are ready to make that push, get over that final hurdle, and break into the college football playoff for the first time. There have been some really good teams that have come up just short of a chance to play in the playoff, and Penn State has been among them over the course of James Franklin's career. Not so much last year, of course, but Penn State has had good teams that have been ranked highly enough to be considered legitimate college football playoff contenders, or candidates, I should say. And they have stumbled at times in games where they really needed to get over that final push. And Ohio State has typically been the team that's been standing in the way the most. And that's no real surprise. I mean, Ohio State is also a perennial college football playoff candidate. They just played in the national championship game last year. They do have one college football playoff national championship to their name. They've got a few appearances in the college football playoff. And going into this 2021 season, they are easily the favorite to win the Big Ten, even though they've got a new quarterback, and I don't think that really matters all that much. They did name their starting quarterback over the weekend. C.J. Stroud's going to be the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes. But Ohio State certainly looks like they are going to be a team to be reckoned with once again. Easily the favorite in the Big Ten, and if the Big Ten is going to send a team to the college football playoff, odds are it's going to be Ohio State. So what does Penn State need to do in order to be a team that maybe not just replaces Ohio State or joins Ohio State in the college football playoff? There's a lot of things to consider here. There are some pros that Penn State has to look forward to. There are some scenarios that have to play out their way. Coming up, we will take a quick look at some of the scheduling scenarios that are in play here for Penn State. And in our third segment today, we'll take a look at some of the reasons for optimism for why Penn State can get things to swing their way and maybe even make a case for the playoff as the season goes on. Well, looking at the weather temperatures for this upcoming week, it looks like it's going to be another hot and sticky week. And if you're like me and you don't really mesh well with the heat and humidity, you probably sweat too much. So that's where Sweatblock seems to be coming to my rescue, because I look for ways to cool off and prevent myself from sweating profusely, and Sweatblock seems to be doing the trick. Sweatblock antiperspirant wipes are stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before bedtime, go to bed, and the next morning you wake up, you wash, and you go about your day without worrying about sweat. They are so confident in how their product works that they give you the dry shirt guarantee. If Sweatblock doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. Sweatblock has been a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years. It's got over 13,000 reviews, and of course, it is manufactured in the USA. If you or someone you love is dealing with this, you have to check out Sweatblock. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON. Or you can check it out on Amazon or at your local CVS. When it comes to whether or not Penn State is going to be considered a legitimate college football playoff candidate, it obviously starts with winning as many games as possible and having as few losses as possible as well. Kind of go hand in hand, I guess. But the bottom line is Penn State has a challenging schedule. So if they are going to make their case, they're going to have plenty of opportunities to do so. And it would help to win games by 20 points every week, but that's probably just not realistic enough. Bottom line is if you go on the road against Wisconsin and come out of there with a win against a top 25 opponent, top 20 opponent, that certainly gets you on the right track. A couple weeks later, you host to Auburn, who could potentially be a top 25 team when that game comes around in week 3. There's no guarantee that that'll be the case, but that would be another nationally televised showcase opportunity moment for Penn State to take advantage of. You also have a road game against Iowa, a night game in Iowa. We'll see, but obviously Iowa's already starting the year as a top 25 team. They'll probably still be a top 25 team by the time that game plays out. And you go on the road and win a second game against a top 25 team, you're in business here. And so all of a sudden, things are coming together. And you still have some work to do because Indiana could still be a top 25 team by the time that game comes around. The biggest game, of course, is the road game against Ohio State. But the good news is you don't necessarily have to beat Ohio State in order to be a top college football playoff candidate for that 4-team field at the end. there's no question that a win against Ohio State tips things far more in favor for Penn State in the playoff conversation than not having that win, because Ohio State is on that national college football playoff radar year in and year out, and they've earned it. They've earned it through recruiting, player development, and accumulating so many wins over the years, so many Big Ten championships. Ohio State is on that playoff level with Alabama and Clemson, where you expect that Ohio State is going to be in the playoff mix on a regular basis. Maybe not necessarily every season, but far more likely than not, you're going to be talking about Ohio State in the college football playoff from September to October into November, and then December when these things are all set up officially. So if you get a win against Ohio State, you're in far greater territory for making a case for the college football playoff. Plus, a win at Ohio State probably gives you a little bit more of a margin for error elsewhere on the schedule. Now, that doesn't mean that Penn State can lose a game to Villanova or to Rutgers, but I do think that you kind of get the idea. The more quality wins you accumulate, the better. And Penn State has plenty of opportunity, it looks like, to accumulate some good quality wins. Take a look at the preseason AP Top 25 in the coaches poll. You've got Ohio State, Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana. Those are 4 ranked opponents already in the making there for Penn State. By the time they play Michigan, maybe Michigan will be a top 25 team. Like I said, Auburn could be a top 25 team when that game is played in week 3. There's a couple weeks for the rankings to shift a little bit, and Auburn's just on the cusp of being a top 25 team according to the others receiving votes category. So the more opportunities to play a top 25 opponent, the better for Penn State, and obviously winning as many of them is going to be the big key, because if there is one thing that I think that I have come to realize watching the college football playoff expand from its inception to the point where we are right now, and looking to see how the selection committee evaluates different candidates, losses do hurt. Losses do matter. But if you have good quality wins to kind of counterbalance that and keep the scale tipped in your favor, the selection committee will pay respect to that. That's why it is good to have a challenging schedule like Penn State will face this season. And as I mentioned, there could be some additional top 25 opponents mixed in there as the season unfolds. So getting those wins gives you that margin for error. Maybe you lose a game to Michigan later on in the year, but if you have a win against Ohio State, which one is the selection committee going to value more? Are they going to criticize you for a loss to Michigan, or are they going to praise you for wins against Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa, maybe Indiana, and Auburn, who could all be top 25 teams at any point this season? That would be 5 good quality wins versus 1 tough loss. And why did you lose that game? Were you down players? Were you missing key players? Were there injuries? Was there a blown call? Was it a close loss? Was it a blowout loss? And that's another thing that kind of comes into the conversation. If you are going to lose a game, make sure you don't get blown out in that game. Losing a 2-point game on the road against Ohio State is not going to ding you all that much if you have other bodies of work in your favor. So obviously, winning all your games, that pretty much guarantees a Big Ten championship team is going to be in the college football playoff, because there's no way an undefeated Big Ten champion would be left out of the college football playoff. It's just impossible for that to be a realistic possibility. Even if they play a weak schedule all the way, you go 13-0 with a Big Ten trophy hosting over your head. Yeah, you're going to be playing in the college football playoff. But even if that's not the case, if you can manage to go through your regular season 11-1, let's say that one loss is to Ohio State, and you keep that game competitive, there is an opportunity that you could still have some chances to play in the college football playoff. Now, mind you, you'll probably need some help from around the country in order for that to be the case, and there is opportunity for that help to be received. I think we can all go into the season kind of expecting that Alabama is probably going to be your SEC champion and locking up one of those spots in the college football playoff, because SEC champion, whoever it is going to go to the college football playoff. Clemson is still going to be a thing here in 2021. I don't think that anyone in the ACC is really going to challenge them too much, although they do have a head-to-head matchup with Georgia to start off their season. That's just going to be pretty fun, but let's just say that Clemson's going to be the ACC representative in the college football playoff. So that's 2 spots right there. I'm already putting in your Big Ten champion. I don't know who it's going to be. It's probably going to be Ohio State, but let's just say that it is Ohio State for the sake of this conversation. What more do you need in order for Penn State to get into the college football playoff? Well, you need the Pac-12 to beat itself up a little bit. good news, possibly, is that Ohio State has a chance to hand Oregon a loss, but it will still help if the Pac-12 beats itself up a little bit here and there, and you have a 2-loss Pac-12 champion at the end of the season at the very best case scenario for Penn State. And then there's the Big 12. Okay, that's going to be a little bit of a problem because I don't think anybody's really catching Oklahoma. Iowa State, who was one of the teams that Eric Smith included in his list of the 8 teams that could make their first college football playoff, they played in the Big 12 championship game last year, and they've got a little bit of hype and enthusiasm going into the upcoming season. But do you really think that anyone outside of Oklahoma is going to come out of that Big 12 championship game with the trophy? I don't. And I think that pretty much will guarantee Oklahoma will be a team in that 4-team college football playoff, because I don't think Oklahoma loses a game. You know, where do they lose a game? And where do they lose more than one game? That's the big question, I think, for Oklahoma, for the college football playoff. I think as long as Oklahoma gets through this season with no more than one loss, then they're in excellent shape to make it into the college football playoff once again. So it is going to be tough. You are going to need some help if you don't have the Big Ten championship to your name. And again, that's why getting as many quality wins as possible is key, because maybe you can win an argument against a 1-loss Big 12 champion that maybe won't be Oklahoma, or a 2-loss Pac-12 champion. If it comes down to one spot, you take a 2-loss Pac-12 champion, 1-loss Oklahoma, or a 1-loss Penn State, with that 1 loss not coming against Ohio State. Maybe Penn State has wins against Ohio State, and Ohio State still goes on and wins the Big Ten championship. Be very interesting to see how that all plays out, but I think that's the situation that we're talking about right now. Obviously, as I have always said, more wins, the better. Win all your games, you're going to be in excellent shape if you're in the Big Ten. That goes for Penn State, that goes for Ohio State, that goes for Michigan, it goes for Northwestern, it goes for Rutgers. If you win every game on your schedule that fall, including an undefeated run through the Big Ten, and win that Big Ten championship, you're going to be going to the college football playoff. There is no way that scenario would play out against the Big Ten. Even if you have undefeated champions from the Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC, I don't see how an undefeated Big Ten champion would be left out. But if you don't go undefeated, then you have to have a little bit of help possibly around the country. You take things a little bit more out of your hands because you aren't responsible for what's going on around the country. So you will probably need some help, but that's where the schedule will come into your advantage. Penn State has the kind of schedule that allows them a little bit of a margin for error, and they can still make up for it and win some head-to-head debates on which team has the better body of work at the end of the season. But Penn State can take care of their own business. They can win every game on their schedule, and we don't even have to worry about having those conversations. I don't trust that will happen, but that seems to be the case. You win all your games, you're in great shape. If you don't win all your games, at least win more quality games than some of the other candidates that are out there, and see where the selection committee will weigh down on the final decision. Well, figuring out who's going to be in the college football playoff may be a tough decision. There is no tough decision about the best protein bar on the market. That is Built Bar. They are the protein bars that taste just like chocolate bars. I tell you, I have one of these every day. It's perfect for a mid-morning snack. If you just need something that's going to get you through until your next meal break, or you're getting ready to go to the gym for a workout, the Built Bar is going to be the perfect complement to your daily routine. The best part is you can fit them into any kind of a diet. It doesn't matter if you're looking to lose or maintain weight, or if you're looking to just stay on a keto diet. The Built Bar slides right into your daily routine. They've got a variety of flavors, and depending on which flavor you get, you're going to get something with 17 or 18 grams of protein, somewhere between 130 and 180 calories, 4 grams or 5 grams of net carbs. And again, it depends on the flavors, and my goodness, the flavors are so delicious to choose from. You almost can't choose just one. You have to go to their website and choose a couple of them and find the one that you like the best, because there's really no shortage of great options. So go to BuiltBar.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your first order. Once again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. And while Built Bar will satisfy your appetite, maybe you still have an appetite. You still have a hunger to place some bets on the upcoming college football games. So again, college football starts this weekend, so you might want to check out all the lines that are going on down over on betonline.ag. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. You get updated odds, you get props, you get contests. It includes online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, and it's open now over at BetOnline. Head to the website on your mobile device or right on your desktop or your laptop. You sign up today and you receive your 100% 100% welcome bonus. That's right, a 100% welcome bonus on top of your initial deposit. But you have to use our promo code of Locked On to take advantage of an opportunity you're not going to get anywhere else in the online betting world. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available now for the 2021 season. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. So Penn State has a very challenging schedule on their hands in 2021. You know how I feel about it. You know that I'm also pretty optimistic about what Penn State has as far as their roster is concerned. And I think that they can take advantage of this challenging schedule and play it into their favor, where they will maybe not necessarily make the college football playoff, but certainly will rise in the rankings very quickly. I will say once again, as I believe I've been saying all off season, I think all the ingredients are there for a very successful Penn State season. And that doesn't necessarily mean winning the Big Ten, but it does necessarily suggest that I think that Penn State has the potential to be playing in a New Year's Six bowl game. And if they have that kind of potential, then they should certainly be on your college football playoff radar for the upcoming season. So I'm reluctant to suggest that this is going to be the year that Penn State plays in their first college football playoff. I don't think that will be the case. I will be ecstatic if it is, but I don't think that that's going to be a realistic playing scenario for Penn State this season. But I do think there are a lot of reasons why you should be optimistic about what Penn State has going for them and why they could be considered a team that could potentially play in the college football playoff for the first time. I'll reiterate some of the points I've been saying all offseason. Okay, the offensive coordinator position was certainly upgraded with the addition of Mike Yurcich. I think that it was a clear upgrade, and I think that that is going to trickle down and have an impact on the entire offense. That begins with quarterback Sean Clifford, who has had a chance once again to work with a new offense coordinator, his third in 3 years. I get that, but again, I also think it's an upgrade at the offense coordinator position, and I think that Mike Yurcich is going to style his offensive game calling around what he has to work with, and I think he's got something that he can feel comfortable with in Sean Clifford. I think Sean Clifford being a third-year starting quarterback is huge. I will take that every time I get that opportunity in college football especially. I know he had his ups and downs, but I do think that there's reason to be confident in a guy who is certainly not lacking in confidence. I think there's some maturity there. I think he takes the next step. I think we see the best form of Sean Clifford this upcoming season. I don't know if that's necessarily a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback, but I do think that it's going to be a far more efficient and reliable quarterback in Sean Clifford that we see this season. Doesn't mean he won't make mistakes. He will. But I do think that you're going to get much more efficiency out of Sean Clifford, and that's going to be huge. And it starts with protecting the football. He's got one of the best wide receivers in Jahan Dotson. He's got young and upcoming wide receivers that are going to continue to develop in Parker Washington and Keandre Lambert-Smith. He's got one of the best running back rooms in the Big Ten. You know, Howard Griffith of the Big Ten Network recently said that it was the best running back combination that he has seen in their tour of the Big Ten. And they've got 3 players on the Doak Walker Award watch list for this upcoming season. So I do think that Noah Cain, John Lovett, Keziah Holmes, Devin Ford, Kevon Lee, they're all going to find some opportunities to contribute, some more than others, but this is a really good running back stable. The offensive line could potentially be the best offensive line we've seen under Penn State, under James Franklin, I should say. And that includes Rasheed Walker, who could very well be a first-round draft pick. Mike Miranda, I think, is an experienced guy that you can rely on in the middle of your offensive line. And I think that there's some good depth there. So I do think that this offense is going to be in really good shape. The defense, I think, is going to be just fine, too. It's not going to be one of the better Penn State defenses. It will be one of the better Penn State secondaries. The linebackers are going to be just fine. And the defensive line, I think, will figure things out. So, yeah. I think that Penn State has everything it needs in order to be considered a team to keep an eye on as you look forward to the upcoming college football season. Are they going to make the college football playoff? I don't think so, but I can understand why they would be on that radar and in that conversation as a team that could potentially play in a college football playoff for the first time. If you want to get some more of my thoughts, I did write about this over on NittanyLionsWire.com, so make sure you check that out for all your Penn State coverage this season, in addition to staying in tune with the Locked On Nittany Lions podcast. It's just a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and there's so many other great shows to be checking out, especially now that college football is right around the corner. And you have to remember that betting on college football doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the Locked On Bets podcast. It's hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. You get daily picks, you get blowout specials, you get my personal favorite, the wrong team favorite pick. I'm going to be curious to see if they think that Penn State and Wisconsin has a wrong team favorite in that line. You know where I'm leaning on that one. But Lee Sterling is also going to give you his lock of the day. So make sure you follow the Locked On Bets podcast, brought to you by betonline.ag, wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on the awesome Odyssey app. Make sure you're following us there or wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're hearing my voice right now. Give us a follow. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a rating and a review. That will really help us out as we continue to inch closer and closer to the start of the season. Big Ten football returns this weekend. We got to wait another week for Penn State and Wisconsin to kick things off. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure you're a part of it. Follow us on Twitter at LockedOnNittany. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/LockedOnNittany. And of course, check out our Instagram, Twitch, and pretty soon our YouTube page. It's all going to be ways that you can stay connected and interact with our podcast moving into the start of the college football season. It's going to be a lot of fun. Happy to have you here with me. My name is Kevin McGuire. You can give me a follow on Twitter at KevinOnCFB. Check out all of our Penn State coverage over on NittanyLionsWire.com, part of the USA Today Sports Media Group. And of course, I'm a contributor to AthlonSports.com. Make sure you check out everything that's going on over there. I believe that the Nebraska game-by-game picks are going up today, maybe tomorrow, but make sure you check that out. And pretty soon, I'm pretty sure we're going to have the Penn State game-by-game picks too, so that'll be fun to check out everything that's going on there as well. Thanks for listening to this edition of the podcast. Thanks for starting your week off with Locked On Nittany Lions. Let's continue on and get ready for the start of the season. It's going to be a fun one, guys.